Trump orders temporary 10% global tariff to replace duties struck down by U.S. Supreme Court. U.S. Supreme Court strikes down Trump's global tariffs. Grey's Anatomy star Eric Dane dies at 53. U.S. lawmakers plan Iran war powers vote as Trump weighs strikes. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a new 10% global tariff that will be imposed for 150 days. The move comes after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down some of his previous emergency tariffs, ruling that he had exceeded his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Trump said the new tariffs will instead be implemented under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. That provision allows the president to impose duties of up to 15% for up to 150 days to address what the law describes as large and serious balance of payments problems. The 10% tariff will apply on top of existing duties already in place. Speaking on Friday, Trump said his administration has quote, alternatives, and suggested the new measures would generate additional revenue and strengthen the U.S. economy. He also announced that the administration is launching multiple investigations under Section 301 of U.S. trade law. Those investigations focus on alleged unfair trade practices by foreign countries and companies. However, such probes typically take months to complete. Because Section 122 limits tariffs to 150 days, the new measure is temporary unless replaced by other trade actions. The announcement signals that the administration intends to continue pursuing aggressive trade policies, despite legal challenges to earlier tariff programs. The United States Supreme Court has struck down President Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs, ruling that he exceeded his authority by using a law intended for national emergencies. In a 6-3 decision, the court found that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, known as IEEPA, does not give the president the power to impose broad tariffs. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the majority, stated clearly, "The authority to regulate imports under that law does not include the power to impose tariffs. The Constitution grants Congress, not the president, the authority to levy taxes and tariffs." The ruling marks the most significant judicial setback for Trump since returning to office in January 2025. Trump reacted angrily, calling the decision terrible and totally defective. He accused some justices of lacking courage and suggested the court had been influenced by political pressure. However, the president quickly announced a workaround. He said he would impose a new 10% global tariff under a different legal authority, Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, which allows temporary duties of up to 150 days. The court's conservative majority was divided. Justices Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett joined Roberts and the 3 liberal justices in the majority. In dissent, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, joined by Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, argued that Trump could likely achieve similar tariffs using other laws. The decision carries major implications for the global economy. Trump's tariffs have been central to a renewed trade war, affecting markets, international alliances, and global supply chains. American actor Eric Dane has died at the age of 53 after battling amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as ALS. Dane, best known for his roles on the television dramas Grey's Anatomy and Euphoria, had publicly revealed his ALS diagnosis in April last year. In the months that followed, he became an outspoken advocate for awareness and research into the disease. In a statement, his representative said he spent his final days surrounded by close friends, his wife, and his 2 daughters, Billy and Georgia. They described him as devoted to his family and deeply grateful for the support of his fans. ALS is a progressive and incurable neurological condition that affects nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord. It gradually impairs a person's ability to move, speak, and breathe. Most patients survive 3 to 5 years after diagnosis. Dane rose to fame in the mid-2000s, portraying Dr. Mark Sloan, nicknamed McSteamy, on the long-running ABC series Grey's Anatomy. His character became one of the show's most popular figures and was later written out in 2012. He briefly reprised the role in 2021. In recent years, he earned renewed acclaim for playing Cal Jacobs in HBO's Euphoria, a role that introduced him to a new generation of viewers. Born in 1972 in Northern California, Dane moved to Los Angeles after high school to pursue acting. Over his career, he appeared in numerous television series and films, building a reputation as a versatile and charismatic performer. The U.S. Congress could vote as early as next week on a measure aimed at blocking President Donald Trump from launching military strikes against Iran without congressional approval. The move comes as the U.S. military prepares for the possibility of a sustained conflict if diplomatic efforts with Tehran collapse. Under the U.S. Constitution, Congress, not the President, holds the authority to declare war. Presidents may carry out limited military actions for national security reasons, but extended operations typically require legislative approval. Democratic Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia and Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky have introduced a resolution in the Senate that would prohibit hostilities against Iran unless Congress formally authorizes them. Kaine said lawmakers who support military action should be willing to vote for it publicly and be accountable to their constituents. In the House of Representatives, Republican Thomas Massie and Democrat R. O'Connor are pushing a similar resolution and say they plan to force a vote next week. However, Republicans hold narrow majorities in both chambers and have previously blocked such efforts, arguing that Congress should not restrict the president's national security powers.